Hi girls, it's Miss Gaska. Today I'm going to go over English 3 Semester 2, Week 2, Activity 5.7, Previewing Embedded Assessment 2. So our learning targets for this activity are to reflect on major concepts and essential questions, and to identify and analyze the skills and knowledge necessary to complete the embedded assessment successfully. So let's look at the Making Connections section. So one of the great literary discoveries after the Harlem Renaissance has been Zora Neale Hurston's novel, Their Eyes Were Watching God. It was unappreciated by some of Hurston's male contemporaries in the literary and artistic movement. Upon its first publication in 1937, the novel slipped out of print until Alice Walker, who wrote The Color Purple, brought it back to the public eye in the 1970s. Since then, Hurston's story of Janie Crawford, a woman on a journey of self-discovery, has received wide acclaim by diverse readers and has made its own journey into the canon of American literature. So girls, I just have to say Their Eyes Were Watching God was one of my favorite books that we read during high school. It's based in Florida, which is something that I really loved because I was able to relate to a lot of the things that were being described, and also the characters were really interesting and engaging. One of the difficulties, though, was that the sentences were written in dialect, meaning the words were spelled the way that they were pronounced by these strong, thick accents. So something that you'd have to get used to while reading this is the dialect. One thing that I recommend is while reading this book, listen to an audiobook at the same time so you could see how the words are supposed to be pronounced, or rather hear how they're supposed to be pronounced. Let's go ahead and look at the essential questions. Number 1 says, how do cultural movements such as the Harlem Renaissance reflect and create people's attitudes and beliefs? So you've already seen a little bit about the Harlem Renaissance, so you're going to think about how that cultural movement and how cultural movements like it can help reflect the beliefs of people in that time period as well as create people's attitudes and beliefs. Imagine being in that period, how if you thought one way, how seeing some of the art or reading some of the stories could have changed your mind about some things. Or the reverse, how you felt a certain type of way and then saw those feelings reflected in some of the work around you. So consider that when you're answering this question. For number 2, how is one writer's work both a natural product of and a departure from the ideas of a specific literary movement in American literature? So think about how when somebody writes a book, how it reflects pieces of their environment, but also how it deviates from their environment and of their literary movement when you're thinking about this question. How have some of the stories you've read been natural products of their environment or a departure from their environment? So now, developing vocabulary. So you're going to review the vocabulary terms that you analyzed and wrote in the first part of the unit. So how has your understanding of the key terms for the unit changed? And which terms do you know thoroughly, which need more exploration, and which resources could you use to deepen your understanding of the terms? So when you're thinking about this, I want you to consider that these terms that were at the beginning of the unit are things you're going to need to know in order to successfully complete your embedded or your final exam as well as your exam review. So they're terms that you have to be familiar with. So now let's look at unpacking embedded assessment 2. Read closely and mark the text for the skills and knowledge you will need to accomplish the assignment for embedded assessment 2, writing an analytical essay. So I'm going to be highlighting the verbs, the actions basically, and then I'm going to be highlighting the things that the actions apply to in 2 different colors. So write an analytical essay. So you're being asked to write, that's a verb. And then, what are you supposed to write? An analytical essay. So I'm going to change this color to be yellow, in which you discuss, so discuss is a verb, how Zora Neale Hurston's writing, that's what you're supposed to discuss, is a reflection of and a departure from the ideas of the Harlem Renaissance. So discuss, I'm going to change. Include is a verb. So include aspects of the Harlem Renaissance that you see reflected in Hurston's work, as well as characteristics of Hurston's writing that are departures from selected aspects of the Harlem Renaissance. So I'm going to change this to yellow. So I'm going to make a list of skills you need to know and concepts you need to know, because skills and concepts are two different things. So skills and concepts. So as for skills, some of the things you're going to need to be able to do is write an essay, analyze a novel, discuss a topic in an analytical essay format, and I think that's basically it. For concepts, you're going to need to know what an analytical essay is. You're going to need to be able to understand Zora Neale Hurston's work as it pertains to the Harlem Renaissance. You're going to need to understand the Harlem Renaissance. You're going to need to be able to describe, oh, I guess that's a skill. Hold on. Describe Hurston's writing styles and techniques. You're going to need to know several aspects of the Harlem Renaissance. And you're going to need to be able to compare Hurston's work with the ideals of the Harlem Renaissance in order to see which pieces of it applies to and which pieces it departs from. So that's all for this activity. I will see you in the next activity for 5.8. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I'll see you next time. Take care.